So yeah, I think having a discussion about bridging the gap between the design and the technology, especially when building websites or any kind of digital product, is really required. Because often, you design something and you've got these great aspirations, and then when you actually jump into the implementation, you then realize, oh, it actually can't be done, and then the final result suffers because of that. And I think we found a few ways over the years to actually avoid this. I think it'd be interesting to discuss that today as well.
Yeah, so the things that we've been doing within the team is firstly focusing on individuals who possess both a good understanding of the design aspect of a project and also have a good technical understanding of what's possible when developing a website or an application. And the second thing that we've done here is also we've invested a lot of time into leveling up our skills on modern day tools, so such as no-code tools, such as Webflow, or low-code tools. And this really allows for a designer to see a whole project through all the way from the design stage through to the final delivery to a client. And this has really aided us in meeting the expectations of the client from the earliest stages of the design of a certain project.
Yeah, because I think there's nothing worse than seeing the designs on the screen, getting incredibly excited, and then as you get to implementation, being told, oh, this is not possible, or this can't be done within budget, and that side of things. And I think the traditional way of working, where it is a split team, people doing design only and people doing development only, kind of contributes to that, because the designers don't really feel that it's their problem that something can't be designed. So they'll do whatever they want and then throw it over the fence, and then someone else has to deal with the consequences. Yeah. While if it's one person or one team going through the entire project, then they're held accountable, right? Because if they design something that's crazy complicated to actually implement, they have to deal with that very, very quite tough consequence, right? Yeah. And I also think it's very difficult to find normally, a developer that also sees design the same way that a designer sees it, with the attention to detail, right? And I think it's very difficult to often merge these two disciplines together. I think low-code or no-code tools really help in doing that, right?
Yeah, and also just to go back to what you said before that, in terms of the way we kind of approach the project management of this, as you said, traditionally it's very much a waterfall effect, right? So you have the designer and design team working on the design side, and then there's a handoff to the development team. And even if they're working in the same room or in the same organization, right, but there's still that kind of gap. And we're really trying to embrace this kind of culture of collaboration, both within the team, but also with our clients as well. And having these kind of either hybrid type individuals that possess both technical understanding and a design understanding, but also matching that with tools that can support that really helps to bridge this handover process.
Yeah, and I think that doesn't mean that designers don't have to worry anything about the coding side of things, right? They do need to know the underlying principles. Right, especially for a tool like Webflow. If you're a designer using that, you really need to have a pretty solid understanding of HTML and CSS to use the tool effectively, right? Yeah. It's not something that you can just abstract away completely.
Yeah. So it's really important, like I said, alongside, let's say that there's a designer who is just focusing on design. It's really important that they find a way to kind of upskill themselves through online resources or courses and stuff like that to really help them kind of have a balanced understanding and really get themselves to a place where they could see a project go through end to end, and also using tools to basically supplement that understanding as well.
Yeah, and I think we've seen the benefits of that. I mean, if we look to kind of benchmark across projects, I think especially for large corporate websites, I think we've seen the benefits of doing that integrated approach. It's a much better product, faster, right? Sometimes I think we've done within 8 or 9 weeks. Yeah, exactly. While the complete opposite approach, where it's even two separate companies, one doing the design, i.e. us, and then handing over to an external party, sometimes it can take 8 months or 12 months, right? Yeah. So we're talking, it's approaching an order of magnitude longer in some cases. And also I think the quality can suffer as well, because you really need, I think, someone with a designer's eye, taking it all the way to go live, right? To taking it to end users, because it's all those tiny details that really make a great experience.
Yeah, and even now we're at a stage, we mentioned one tool, which is Webflow, but just to mention a few other tools that are out there, even now there's sort of like a movement that's going on towards more low-code platforms for that very reason, right? To bring things to market quickly and test them more quickly and really get out those MVPs, the minimum viable product, to really start to test with real people and have potentially one person or a very small team bring that all the way to a testable state. So there's other tools like Bubble is one, and there's also one called V1, which is quite a new tool that's coming out, which is kind of like Webflow, but for applications as well. So there's a lot of innovation in this kind of low code and no code space, which, as we mentioned, does require designers or developers to have an understanding or some knowledge of the other skill set, but it allows people to take a project from start all the way to finish, or at least to a testable state, which is something really important.
Yeah, and I wonder if we'll see in the next 10 years, essentially the ability to deploy quite complex applications without any underlining coding, right? You'll just be able to design workflows, to set rule sets, and essentially code at a high level while the underlying complexity is just abstracted away, right? And I think especially things like infrastructure, security, that side of things. Yeah. Really now we don't really have to deal with that anymore, even now for corporate websites, right? Yeah, because Webflow just handles that way better than we could ever do as a small, professional service firm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and just as a final note, I think it all comes down to focusing on who really is your end customer and what we can do and what tools we can use to really deliver the ultimate value to the end customer and get it ready to test with real users. And all these kind of tools, and also having these kind of design and developer type hybrids, really helps to keep the end user top of mind at all times throughout the project process.
Yeah, and I think that links in with our concept of sort of M-shaped people, right? That we look for. Traditionally people look for sort of T-shaped people, someone that's got depth in one discipline and a broad understanding of various other disciplines, and ideally having maybe depth in two or more disciplines and also a broad understanding of the rest. I think is really important. So yeah, the idea of that design, that technology, and also business requirements and just being able to understand the client's business, because there are every project has thousands of small decisions and they need to be made in some way on autopilot, right? You can't ask the client for everything, you can't have internal meetings for everything, exactly. Right? And I think the only way that's achieved is through having great context, right? And I think that's where hiring the right people really makes a difference. So in conclusion, I think if you're watching this video and you're thinking about using low code or no code tools, I think it's something that I would really encourage people to do, because they're not anymore these sort of silly builders that kind of restrict you to basic templates. And it's obvious when you go on a website on one of these tools that it's built in this way, right? Now you can get fully custom and interactive experiences that are kind of a world-class quality, right? We've seen huge companies using these tools. One that comes to mind is HelloSign, which is owned by Dropbox, and their entire marketing site runs on Webflow, right? So if it works for a multi-billion-dollar organization, it can probably work for your organization as well. And in the end, it allows you to ship better products faster, right? So I think that's really an interesting thing. And one thing that we haven't even explored so much at MAD is even going all the way to application development for Android or iOS apps. But I think that's really the natural step.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're looking to explore going forward. Right now we heavily use Webflow, but as I mentioned previously, there's some tools like Bubble and also a few others that are specifically around the Android and iOS ecosystem that work in a very similar way to what Webflow has done in the web space. But I think the natural progression would be to expand that and that whole kind of ethos between hybrid designs and developers into the mobile application world, and maybe eventually even into stuff like enterprise software and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is I think Webflow is obviously clearly now the market leader for this on the web, but I think nobody has yet won the title of AppFlow.
Yeah,
right. Nobody has yet conquered the mobile side of things. So it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years who comes out on top and what becomes the industry standard to basically do low code or no code mobile applications.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a complete game changer.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, so thanks so much for watching this video and joining in on this discussion. And if you have any more questions about our processes or about low-code or no-code tools and how this may be able to help your business, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Mad.